really happy to introduce Scott Meddings to you. Together we will run through, of course, the Microsoft Power Platform and its key components. Really, the main takeaway that we want to outline here is, well, I call it the platform of the 21st century, and a true no-code, low-code platform that enables any kind of organization to digitalize all of your business processes. And Scott will walk you through the capabilities of the Power Platform, and I will then a little bit later take you through some examples, in particular on how we define and map and digitalize the business processes in the project portfolio management place. With that, I'm going to now introduce Scott Meddings. And Scott, over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. I'm really happy to be here to talk about one of my favourite topics, which is the Power Platform. So as Mark said, I lead the Power Platform across Australia. So what that means is I work with a lot of really big enterprise companies and smaller companies as well to really look at how the Power Platform works with them and how we can expand more of the Power Platform and how we can really drive outcomes and things, and what it means to even have a low-code strategy. So obviously the solutions that Sensei have built are all on top of the Power Platform, so it's a really great example of what I'm about to walk you through. But effectively today, why low-code is really hot technology now is really about transformation and digital transformation and doing that at scale. So most organizations I work with right now are either deployed the Power Platform, in the middle of deploying the Power Platform, or looking at ways that they can really expand on top of the platform. And we do that with really strong guardrails and governance. And when we talk a little bit later about operational readiness, I'll go into some of that. But effectively, why did we build the platform, and why has Microsoft spent billions of dollars really creating something over the last 3 or 4 years? And you can probably be forgiven a little bit for going, what just happened, because it has such a short amount of time that the platform, has really been built and explored and developed. It's incredible, really, the journey we've gone on. So why have we done that? Effectively, we're going to build more apps in the next few years as a global, cloud organization more in the next few years than we have done in all the years entirety. So there's some statistics on the screen here, but effectively more apps in the next 5 years than we built in the last 40. And you can go back way beyond that. So what it really means is that when I go into an organization today, because we all work remotely, we all work hybridly, we have to do things a lot differently now than what we used to. And we have to provide a really digital experience to employees, and we have to leverage a lot of the tooling like Microsoft Teams, like what we're using now, in different ways. And nearly every organization I walk into is really thinking about the employee experience with a different sort of thought process. Now, the Power Platform is there to address not only the employee experience, but a whole bunch of challenges, which I'm going to talk you through right now before we get right. So these are the challenges that I'm seeing. So these are based off customer feedback right across the industry right now. So, and I'm going to hit this one here because low code addresses the technical skills shortage in a really unique way. And what I mean by that is low code is there to be able to provide an ability to create an application and do that with a set of skills that might not necessarily be skills that you've developed over years, but maybe months. So it's a big turnaround in our thought process on how we build applications, and to move from code to low code. It really means that more people can build on the platform than ever before. So the way that we're addressing the skill shortage is we've built the entire platform using Office 365 and PowerPoint skills. So anyone can really go and build an app. And after you've really honed your skills on the platform, and you can really build deep integrated applications and really transform the way that you're building apps today. So a couple of other things that are not on here, which we're really addressing, is tech debt as well. So, if you create an application using code effectively or deep code, you know, usually there's only a few developers that really understand what you've done. There's a whole reverse engineering process you have to go around that. With low code, we use a different methodology. We build applications so other people can come in and then extend on those applications really easily. So we remove tech debt. Shadow IT is another one which we remove because the business is able to create their own applications and not necessarily have to all the time go out to third-party solutions. So all of these things are really important. Of course, paper processes as well right now. If you're creating paper processes, it's kind of ridiculous because we're all working remotely. So eliminating paper processes is really key to this technology. But this one down the bottom left here, I really like as well, which is the platform has a unique way of really bringing IT, the business, and the DevOps team together as one unit. And I think Sensei do a fantastic job of really explaining how their application set really bring this together around bringing this partnership. We call it a fusion team internally, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And lastly, the one I want to talk about at the top here is budget constraints. Building on the platform is fast, it's agile, and it's cheaper. So no matter which way you look at it, I can build applications. I've got numerous examples in a really fast time. Now, the platform's not for every application. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of applications out there we're still going to use code for a long time. I can think of applications like really big customer-facing applications today. There's still good reasons to do that in code. But there's a lot of other applications where this is a really nice sweet spot for, and we should think about how we classify applications moving forward. So a lot of my customers are looking at that. You know, what app should I put on low code and what should I build with pro code? All of these type of questions are starting to come up now. So let's talk about the platform now. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what it is so you know what the tooling is built upon. And I'll start off the top left here with Power Apps. So Power Apps, you might have heard of it before as a term, but effectively it's a low code way to build an application out of a browser. So by low code, I mean, if you've got PowerPoint skills today and you've got Microsoft Excel skills, you've got the tools to really get started. So it means that you can just go and spin up an application really quickly, go and build something, share it with your colleagues and go and create. Now, you might not have the skills to build really complex apps, but you can get started. So this Power Apps canvas here allows you to do that out of a browser. Now, it's pretty straightforward and easy to use, and you can't really get into that much trouble until you start connecting to data. Now, Power Automate is there to create that automation and that connection to data. So it has over 600 data connectors today, and due to governance in the organizations where you work, or if you're an IT person that looks across those 600 connectors, you're probably going to block a lot of those connectors, and I'll talk about that in Readiness in a minute, to the business. But effectively, we can control all of those connectors with governance and allow us to be able to go and create automations on top of the ones that we deem are viable for the company that we work in. So Power Automate is there really to automate those processes. Think of it as something happens and then I need to go and do something, or perhaps I send an email and then I automatically send another email, or perhaps I want to connect to data from SAP system and then put that into my PPM system, all of this type of thing. So it's a really nice data integration. Again, it's low code. You can jump in and start building automations pretty quickly. Now, remember, this is all part of the Office 365 portfolio of products. So that means I can access all of this from office.com. And if I've got a license to do so, I can do more advanced things. If I use my Office 365 license, I can do more limited things. It really depends on what you're trying to do. Power BI is our visualization tool. So if no one's seen Power BI before, it is a dashboarding analytics tool that allows you to pretty much have a look at your data and then make decisions about that data. Now, the great thing about Power BI is it's native to this product set. So what that allows us to do is I can put automations into Power BI. I can build automations off Power BI. I can put Power Apps embedded into Power BI, and I can embed Power BI into our Power Apps. In fact, the native integration is so good now, it's very impressive. So if you haven't seen a demo of that, definitely have a look. But this whole package as a whole allows me to go and build really nice applications with really slick dashboards and really nice visualizations of my data, my underlying data. And I'll talk a little bit about how we bring that data together in a minute. The last one over here is Power Virtual Agents. So that sits with us as well, because when we think about how we interact with people, sometimes there's a lot of repetitive tasks, or there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, or there's access to data that we need to access where we don't want a human interaction. So what we did was we grabbed our technology that sits within Azure and we built a low-code UI over the top of it. So it's still the Azure Bot framework, but it's now built with low-code. And to give an example of how easy this is to use, I worked with a large company recently, one of our large tier 2 banks. We had a HR bot that we had to stand up. I did a couple of demos of the technology, and within 3 months, we had a chatbot stood up, passed through security, and out into production. So really, really quick. And now if the HR team need to modify that bot or make a change, they can do that themselves. They don't need to go to IT to do that, because we'll put the guardrails in play to be able to make that happen. And it's really easy to go and stand up additional chatbots from this point on. So again, low code designer, really easy to use. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look on YouTube at some of our demos, but Power Virtual Agents definitely is fully integrated into this stack as well. So if I need to connect to any data source, I can do that with Power Automate really, really easily. Now, there's a couple of other things down here I want to talk about too. So one of them is AI Builder. So built within the platform, we can deal with use cases that require artificial intelligence to execute on. And we can do that with low code as well. So AI Builder is our tooling for that. It integrates with Power Automate and Power Apps seamlessly, and also Power Virtual Agent, but allows you to go and tackle use cases that might be high value use cases or out of the box. And a classic example might be, I've got a whole bunch of invoices that are going into my inbox, and I need to grab those invoices, read the data off them, and then save that data to another system, or perhaps build an action from that. So AI Builder can do that natively. It uses all of our machine learning algorithms out of Azure, our cognitive services. So it allows us to look at images and make decisions, or look at text and make decisions, do translations, all sorts of things like that. And again, like I said, it's low code, so it's very easy to use. I can give you an example that I did probably about 3 months ago now for an ISV called Duck Creek, where we wanted to do some verifications of driver's licenses. And in Australia, every state has a different driver's license. Within an hour, we were able to set up a working model to look at every driver's license type and grab the date of birth, the name, and the details off that driver's license, and effectively be able to then save that into our database and use that against all of our Power Apps and first-party applications and things like that. So really easy to use. Great complementary software to this package, and completely natively integrated. So, and you can do that directly out of the same portal that you use to configure all of this. Now, the one on the right here is really there to talk about our management components and how we manage the platform. So the entire platform is managed within Office 365. So this is important to know. So if we want to start talking about governance and configuration and things like that, it's the same people that administer your Office 365 tenant can go in and administer this platform. And it's the same look and feel, the same way we have logs correlated and everything like this. What we do with Office 365, we do with this platform. So a really rich set of security and governance. I'll get more into that in a minute. Now, the last point that I haven't talked about is Dataverse. And I've got a whole slide devoted to Dataverse because I think it's really key on what this is. So Dataverse itself is a database that we host as software as a service. So if you think about how you build an application traditionally today, I might get a SQL server, I'll host that in Azure, I'll then create a data model, publish it to the SQL database, and then I'll build an application on top of that. It's really hard for a business user to go and do that. So if we want to enable more people to build applications, we need to grab the same technology, but make it really easy to use. And we need to make it performance, have a fair bit of scalability, and we need to be able to provide an easy tool set to be able to go and add fields and things like this. So Dataverse is our answer to that. It is software as a service, sits on top of Azure. Under the hood, it's Azure SQL, Blob Storage, and Cosmo all rolled into one service. So it's a tiered database. And it allows us to be able to do all of the logic, storage, integration, and security across our applications, but do that in a low-code manner, so it's really easy to go and configure. So this is what underpins all of our first-party applications like CRM and customer service and field service and things like that. And it's what enables us to build all of our performant applications on. So we have thousands and thousands of users using our CRM applications today, and they all sit on top of Dataverse. So it gives us a guarantee that we know that if we're going to build an application on Dataverse, it's really performant, and we know that it's going to work, and we know it's really secure. So, which is a key building block when it comes to building an application, and it's a really important thing that you need to go and create when building an application as well. So Dataverse, I think it's really one of the things that if you haven't heard of it before, definitely have a look at what it is and its capabilities. And if you're going to build applications, consider doing it on Dataverse. Of course, we support every other database on the planet as well that you can go and build on top of. But this is definitely one place that you want to have a look at when you first start building applications, particularly if you're starting off with a really low skill base and you just want to stand up something that's really performant. So how does this all work with Azure, and how do we develop fast? So everything I've just spoken about is on top of our Azure cloud. So that means every service for Australia is in Melbourne or Sydney, so it's localized. Everything that is compliant within those two data centers, all of our, I guess, regulatory bodies, if it's banking, it could be APRA, is all compliant. So it's the same as if it was Office 365. All the services that we use under the hood are all Azure, which means everything's scalable and configurable. Now, it also means that I don't just have to stay at this layer. It's a no cliffs approach. So if I want to be able to develop applications and extend into Azure, I can do that. And there's some really great examples on why I would do that. So for instance, maybe I've got a whole bunch of APIs that I need to manage across my environment, and I don't have a tool to do that. Well, I can use API Manager inside of Azure, and I can expose those as connectors into Power Automate, just natively, just part of the service. Or perhaps I want to do something that's a little bit more detailed than a Power Automate flow, and we want to use a logic app to do that. I can do that and fully integrate that into Power Automate. And the cognitive services also are a no-brainer. There's a whole bunch of custom AI that I might want to do that I'll get the technical team to go and build on that perhaps I can then leverage across my low code. So what this means is it creates this ability for us to work with the IT team and the business to really get to an outcome and really build much bigger applications and really performant applications, and ones that can stretch to a lot more use cases. So if I roll this up on what we actually need for low code to succeed inside of my organization, this really comes down to three things. So if we look at the first one, it's having a strategy. So you have to recognize first that we have a need for low code. So there's a bunch of applications that we have to have that we think low code is a really good candidate. And you'll see from Mark soon about all the capabilities that we can do across the PPM solutions, but just think of the amount of solutions that you can create with low code and where you think that sits. Now, once we have an executive strategy, yes, low code is our answer. We've got architecture approval on that. IT agree, the business agrees, that's a step forward. We then have to have what we call a fusion team. So a fusion team to us is a collaboration between business and IT to get to the same outcome. Rather than us working at odds with IT or the business, it's about us working together as a group to go, hey, we've got some business outcomes we need to achieve. How can we work together to do that? And let's enable that across the platform. And the platform has a really good way of doing that because the guardrails are controlled by IT. So that's a tick box for security, but the outcomes are controlled by the business. So that's a tick box for business. And there's no better person than someone sitting within the business to go, this is my problem and this is how we should fix it. And there's no better person around security and governance than someone from IT to go, hey, this is how I think we should secure the platform and this is what we can get access to. So this fusion team is really important that everyone's working on the same goal. The last one. Yep.
The interesting part about that, when it was introduced, I was at the Ignite in 2019, and the Center of Excellence for the Power Platform was introduced. And I tell you, the whole IT department gasps when they heard that every business user has the ability to create their own application. And they all thought, oh, look, this is going to be like another Access kind of story.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard those preconceived ideas. I wonder how you explain those to your customers, as well as what kind of experience you've had when the Power Platform was actually introduced from a strategic perspective.
So, Mark, that is a fantastic question, because it is something I get every day. I think when I talk to a new customer, they go, hey, now we've got Access and Excel. It's everywhere in my organization, and you created the problem. And I said, yeah, but we've fixed it. So effectively, the way that we address this is through this point 3 here. This security and governance is really key. So with Excel and Access and other applications, maybe like Lotus Notes, they're a bit of a silo. So all of these applications contain data. And if I have an Excel that has a whole bunch of data, I can copy and paste it and give it to someone else. So what we've done is we've abstracted the layers of an application, and we've segmented those into different security and governance models that allow us to effectively quarantine the data in different stages and allow people access via their security credentials. I know that sounds really complicated, but it's really easy. If you have an Office 365 authentication through Azure, through Office 365, I can only see what I have access to see. If you have an authentication through to a third-party application, I can only see what I have access to see. And we quarantine the connectors, so what data you're connecting to. So we really limit what people can see and what they can't. And with Dataverse, we get down to really tight field level security as well. So this is what the big difference, to answer, Mark, your question is, what's the difference between Access and Excel? I now see everything. I know who you're connecting to, what data you're connecting to. I can stop it, I can govern it, I can remove it, I can connect to it, I can view it, everything. So the great thing about that visibility is not only can the business see all of the applications and the data and where it lies, and is it breaching APRA or some other regulatory body, I can also then leverage that data to go, oh, customer A is a business customer over here, and customer B over here is a consumer customer. Oh, but they're on 2 different insurances or something like this, but I can see that they've got 2 different packages because I have a really clear customer 360 view in Dataverse. So it's really executing on that.
Yeah, look, and from an IT perspective, I can imagine it actually makes life much, much easier. In the past, you really had these black box applications that were somewhere on the desk, or even on a desktop or laptop at that point in time. It really must give IT on one hand their peace of mind, knowing that they can actually really lead that security component. But I also wonder, from that low code strategy, I mean, me being a huge fan of Power Apps, of course, and Power BI, I call it the new Excel ultimately, right? How much uptake have you seen from a business perspective, from business users?
So the platform's really huge right now. So we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of percentage point growth year on year on the platform. So absolutely tremendous. I haven't seen anything inside of Microsoft grow so fast, other than maybe the early Office 365 days. I can give you an example. So when I joined Microsoft 5 years ago, I was the 3rd person in our BizApps team to get hired. We now have 70 people in our team. So that shows you the customer demand across this. We spooled up another 1,000 people last year globally across BizApps to be able to meet the demand of customers that want to adopt this platform and really understand it. It's definitely seen as I guess, a way to remediate these type of applications that you have no view of today that sit within the organization, and really remove shadow IT.
Yeah, it's interesting, because when we see that at customers, it is almost like an epiphany, right? It is the need that has been finally satisfied after so many years, where you quite rightly put it into that fusion team where business and IT really collaborate beautifully together. And this has been our experience as well with the Power Platform capabilities there. It's cool.
And what's really cool about it, Mark, is that once enterprises have adopted the governance framework and really looked at how they can make the platform really compliant within their organization, solutions like what Sensei have, it makes it really easy for you to come in then and go, oh, we can adapt to your framework and your governance, and here's what we can do as an ISV solution. And I think we then have almost an expansion of the Fusion team where now Sensei become part of that Fusion team as well. So you have business IT and a third-party provider as well, but everyone knows the solution is governed and secure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It really is starting to feel like a true partnership where all three parties, from the business side of it, from the IT side of it, and from a vendor perspective, are really working like one Fusion. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the big shift we're seeing this year. I think the last 2 years has been sort of people adopting it, and now it's going, well, now we've got everything set up. What do we need to do? I've got some examples here, really good customer examples here. But what I want to center in is on the Telstra example here. So I'm going to mention Nathan because Nathan is a great example of how people can change their career with the Power Platform. So Nathan worked at Telstra and he was effectively, you know, out in the field, laying cables, dealing with network problems and all of these types of things. And then he discovered the Power Platform about 2.5 years ago, and he stood the Power Platform up in Telstra as a Power Factory, ran that for a couple of years, and then we just hired him into my team now. So he stands alongside me doing what I'm doing right now. So you can see, even from like a career progression point of view, if people want to get into low code, there's just so much you can do, and there's so much you can actually just change your career. And I've got probably a good dozen examples of people like Nathan globally that have done this. So they're a standout, Telstra. There's heaps of stuff online on what they've done because they're a public reference. So definitely check that out if you get a chance. So we spoke about the Fusion team and what it looks like. This is including pro developers as well here. But really, how do we get down to, I guess, the more technical side of readiness and what does it mean? So let's talk about that. So for us, it's a multi-step approach to governance. It covers all facets of governance, but effectively it looks like this. First, we need to secure what it is people are accessing. There is no way you can allow people within the business or people outside of the business to be able to create an application without really understanding what they're connecting to and how they're connecting to it, and without putting guardrails in. So we do that via these sort of key pillars here, if you think of it that way. We define an environment strategy. What that means is an environment is a container for all the configuration and the apps and things that you're building, and we can containerize that down to a business unit or even to an application. So that allows us to really confine the application and put the guardrails around and the security that we need when it comes to building the applications in the first place. So that's important to understand. There's a great document on environment strategy online. I'm sure we can share with you after the call if you're really interested. But if you go Power Platform environment strategy in Bing or Google, it'll come up. The next one is we have data loss prevention policies. So what this means is I can configure all of the connectors on the platform effectively to only talk to certain people or certain applications at any point in time. So for instance, we might create an environment that is a productivity environment, meaning anyone can create whatever they like, but they can't connect to any data. And then someone might say from finance, hey, I want to build an app to connect to SAP. We'll look at that example and go, yep, here's the SAP connector. We've certified that through governance. You can now use it only in that environment, so no one else can see it. So it containerizes things, and DLP policy allows us to get really granular on what connectedness can do. We can take it a step level, not on all connectors, but on some. We can actually go down and define in a SQL connector, for instance, what tables you can connect to and lock other tables out, and whether it's a read or a write to those tables. So these are getting really granular now as we roll out more advanced ways to be able to manage them. We need to be able to do tenant isolation. So what this means is I can only connect to my corporate tenant. I can't connect to another tenant whilst I'm on the corporate network. So that builds up a tenant-based isolation. So think of a tenant as Office 365, and then under that is environments, and then under that is the governance. And the last one here, this is important. So this user productivity environment. In your Office 365 tenant, you'll notice there's a thing called the default environment. We call that a personal productivity We don't put any production workloads in there, but we want people to be able to go in and create whenever they like. So we can govern those. A lot of the big banks will say after 30 days, we're going to delete all apps out of that user productivity environment unless you come up with a business case to keep it, and then you can put it in a dedicated dev environment, and we might put that into prod if it gets approved. So having this whole secure strategy in place is really important. The next one is monitor. So we want to be able to review all the time what's going on, what apps are getting created, how they're getting created, what data we're connecting to. We do this via telemetry, audit logs, and out-of-the-box analytics. So there's a whole bunch of telemetry. We also have what we call the Center of Excellence Toolkit, which you can deploy. It's free, it's on GitHub, and that'll give you even more clarity and detail on what's happening. 80% of my customers go and deploy that. So you can use a partner to do it, or you can do it internally yourself. It's really up to you on what your skill level is, but it's something you can configure to give you deep analytics on what's going on.
And I must say, we deploy that as well. It is awesome. This is a really, really good tool for governance of your data. Absolutely great. And it's free as part of the package, which is awesome.
I can put the link in the chat, Mark, when I hand over to you soon, and everyone can go and check it out and have a look at it, as well as the environment strategy. So the last one of these is to automate a lot of things in the background. This is really big with a lot of customers now. How do we automate it? I mentioned before, automation, deletion of apps and things like that, policies, warnings, emails, onboarding. Think of all these things. It's a bit of a community inside of most enterprises on how we manage the Power Platform. So if someone is onboarding in and they say, hey, I want to go and build applications, and we go, yep, we'll make you, give you the ability to be a maker and do that, but you go and watch these videos first so we know you've got a level of skill and understanding, and then we can automate the onboarding process and things like that. Equally, we can automate anything that's a breach that we think we need to do. So there's a whole lot of other things that we have that are available. Given it's an enterprise platform, we can do completely automated lifecycle management. So we can use Azure DevOps to do that, or something of your choice. We build on what we call solutions to do that. Mark's very experienced with solutions because all of the Sensei solutions sit on that. So the ability to be able to migrate all of your configuration from one environment to the other. So understanding some of this stuff is really important. And of course, down the bottom, the Center of Excellence, which I just spoke about. So this is interesting here too. You need someone that sort of owns the Power Platform, responsible for it in the organization. And this person really is there to do education on foster best practices. So what this means, if I drill into the next slide, it's really about understanding how the platform works and what we need to teach our users. And it could be something as simple as, here are the connectors that you can connect to. Here are the best ways of building an app. Here are some templates we've already created that we want you to access, and really understanding how we nurture and educate people that want to join the platform. The reason we want to do that is because we want to really drive innovation and digital transformation. So we want people to go and create. We just don't want them to breach any corporate policies that we have in place. This gives you a bit more detail on how we can secure on this slide, really around setting up AD conditional access and things like that, things like two-factor authentication. All of that stuff should be set up. The platform supports everything that that Azure has to offer when it comes to security. So we can go as tight as we like across this. But it's also important to understand that if we've already set up these audit logs for our O365 pipeline, that we can use the same tooling to do that. So I think I'm going to stop now. I'm sure we've got a lot of questions about this, Mark, but I'm going to hand it over to you now. And we'll come back for some questions after you've finished. How's that sound?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, that sounds great. Let me just go and put you over here. All right. Well, whoa, what a whirlwind that was. Thank you so much, Scott. That was awesome. And I can never get enough of that, purely because it is amazing how how Microsoft, well, I call it how Microsoft has unified technology and really starts to involve the end user from a business point of view. Now, just very quickly, can you see my screen?
Yep, got it.
Yeah, you can. Awesome. Excellent. So yeah, thank you very much, Scott. Again, we are going to show you the example. And look, I always like to say Microsoft is the architect and Sensei the interior designer. And really, this is where it all comes into place. Now, the example is not going to be a business example in its own right. I will talk about more the technology and how that sits together. But I also want to showcase how an end user doesn't need to experience the technology, but really the business side of it. So for us, Sensei IQ was really built around three major components: the ability for you to manage your work, Project IQ, which I always like to say, doing the work right, the ability for you to govern and prioritize your work, doing the right work in Portfolio IQ, and then of course linking that to the strategic outcome of an organization, breaching the strategic chasm between planning and execution. Now, from a pure technology point of view, what that means for us, it really became apparent that coming from, from a project server and a project online background, which used to be our really flagship and was a business purpose-built solution by Microsoft, Microsoft has now really become the platform, the underlying platform that enables you to do all of the business side of it. Scott already outlined the tool set of Power Apps quite extensively, and we as Sensei have now built our project portfolio management solution on top of that. And cynically speaking, what that actually means is that Microsoft used to design the user experience, I'm going to say, based on technical people or based on developers. Now we are the subject matter expert in regards to project and portfolio management. We now have the ability to design that user experience, and that's really, really key, in particular when you want to enhance the solution to organizational specific needs. That means that on one hand, of course, your business and IT department maximizes the investment that they have done into the Power Platform, because the business user can actually amend their own processes, which never is set in stone and always evolves themselves, and in combination with the IT department can do that without needing to call Sensei every 2 seconds saying, oh, can you please do this or can you please do that? So that no code, low code capability really enables our customers, partners, the ability to to do that themselves, of course, with our assistance. So we literally use Power Automate to automate business processes, approval processes, stage gate approvals, etc. And we also understand that unlike a solution like Project Online, which required you to only ever use an execution tool, a schedule tool like MS Project to manage your projects, well, these days the world has changed, and we need to ensure that a solution like that is not just designed for professional project managers, but project executors of all levels of project management maturity. This could be a technical staff that likes to use Jira or Azure DevOps. This could be a marketing department that likes to do a lightweight Kanban approach with Planner or with Project for the Web. Or of course, it could be as complicated as a Primavera construction execution tool that needs to be part of that overarching capability. So we seamlessly synchronize those execution capabilities, providing you with that one big picture. And the big picture for us is, of course, then also outlined in Power BI, the Excel spreadsheet of the 21st century, as I like to call it. Lots of visualization and really drag and drop. It liberates the business user, in my opinion. Of course, that all needs to be embedded into your day-to-day work environment that is Office 365, and the end user, well, they don't really know whether they use SharePoint or whether they use Power Apps or Power BI or Power Automate. It just needs to seamlessly integrate into that end user experience, and Teams is actually outstanding for that. From a user point of view, we use, of course, Power Apps as well, and we do this consciously because it means that project portfolio management is only one slice of business processes. Imagine you have a HR department that needs to implement or digitalize certain processes, or any other business related processes that need to be digitalized. You use the user experience of Power Apps, and no matter what kind of business process it is, the user experience is always the same, except the content and of course the approval processes. And that lowers the training on one hand, and of course also means that user adoption happens much more intuitively. Not to mention that the Power family enables us to seamlessly integrate with other line of business systems. There are a whole bunch of data connectors out of the box these days that enable us really to provide the information and data that the end consumer or business user requires. And it's not rocket science anymore, and that's really key here. And as Scott already quite extensively outlined, this all lives under the wonderful world of Dataverse. Now, that means on the security point of view, if your cybersecurity is happy with Office 365, they will be happy with a solution like Sensei, because again, Microsoft is the architect and we are the interior designers. So I just wanted to quickly outline that. And again, I'm not going to bore you too much today with the capabilities from a business perspective, but as you can see, it really covers everything around work management, from the initiatives, project program portfolio, all the way to the governance, resource management, timesheet management, innovation management, ideas management, and the ability, of course, to do prioritizations, benefit realization. So everything beautifully combined, where literally different areas of the business manage different types of processes, but combining still the overarching the underlining data to have that overarching picture. No more double handle. Data actually flows with business processes, and that is super effective when it comes to consistent and trustworthy information. So let me show you an example here. The example that I'm about to show you is, of course, Sensei IQ, and I want to just outline the different user experience. So I show you how the experience looks like in Microsoft Power Apps. You can see it is a Power App solution with, of course, the familiar user experience that Power Apps provides you with, but then you have the ability to enhance that capability. That also means, let's say, I want to see a list of all of my projects, for example. I just simply open this up, and as you can see, the background is actually Power BI. The end user doesn't really know that. All that the end user is going to experience is, of course, the information set that is required to make their day-to-day decision. In that instance, it's a list of all of my projects, where I can literally very easily just look at the KPIs and look at comments of why those KPIs are green, amber, or red, and of course then also have the ability to just simply drill into a particular project progress or project status, whereby the project manager really doesn't need to create project status reports anymore, but as you maintain the content, or as you may even integrate content, let's say from your finance department, actual costs, budgets, etc., you have that overarching picture. In that instance, the classical one-pager with the most important information regarding the project, with trend analysis and status and milestones, so all the way to the financial capability that provides you really that real-time view and outlines exactly where we are over or where we are under budget. Again, providing this really in just simply Power BI, the ability for an end user to actually produce them. So I wanted to outline this as an example of how Power Apps and Power BI combined actually works for a user experience. Now, as a project manager, I of course also want to have the ability to simply maintain my data. So I open up the project, and again, the user experience you have here right now is again Microsoft Power Apps, with the ability to give a project manager, I'm going to call it the helm of information, and that of course outlines all of the artifacts, but most importantly, it also guides our project manager through the business processes, to the point that each stage gate has checklists, and as you progress progress through the different stage gates, you then literally can provide notifications or approval processes, additional information, and therefore you automate that business process. Now, when you for example, receive that notification, you can approve that directly in your Outlook by receiving the email and saying, yes, I approve or reject that. So it is very, very powerful from, from that day-to-day working. It doesn't matter whether it's Power Apps or Power Automate or Power BI. As a business user, I want to make sure that I manage my content. Now, in this particular instance, as you can see, I also have, of course, my project schedule, which in that instance is actually project for the web. So this is a project that was created utilizing project for the web, and I can very easily just open up my project schedule. It opens that up in the corresponding in the corresponding schedule tool. So if this would be planner for a lightweight project, it would open up the planner plan. Or if this would be even an MS project or project online schedule, then it would open up the project online schedule. You can manage all of your tasks, and it then synchronizes it back into Sensei IQ. So as you can see, the different technologies, underlining technologies, are all utilized and maximized in their value. But from an end user, I often want to maybe not work in Power Apps, but we've adopted Teams, and I want to show you that user experience in Teams as well. Most of our customers these days actually work exclusively in Teams, where they manage all of the work in there, because Teams for me is not only a collaboration capability that is awesome, but it provides a window into all of the different underlining technologies, no matter what that is. I'll give you an example. So here, for example, is a project that we've just opened up earlier. I open this particular project up, and as you can see, it is part of a program. So there is a team side of a program, and it will form part of a channel within that program, so that the program manager, of course, can also collaborate. And as you can see, the user experience in Teams is exactly the same. That also means, hey, I want to manage my tasks. I just simply use the different tabs within Teams and have that seamless experience. Security is very important. That's why this actually doesn't work out at the moment. And of course, that also means that if I want to collaborate against my documents, I use the power of Teams when it comes to the document management capability. Technically SharePoint in the background, of course, as well, or OneDrive, we then have the ability to just simply utilize that. Not only from an individual project perspective, but actually also from a dashboard perspective. So here's my overarching organizational dashboard. And let's say I want to be able to check out all of my resources that I manage combined across my organization, because we are using Sensei IQ or Power Apps, and we are using the Office 365 user base that you have. We literally now have the ability to determine, okay, what kind of resources do I have? Where are their location? Where are they working on? And is the work that we have within an organization enough or too much in comparison to the total capacity of my project, of my resource, of my global resource pool? So the combination between Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, Teams, Outlook, and you can see it really extends that part, because the information storage actually happens in Dataverse, and it really allows you to, I call it always, bust the borders of databases and ensures that data is only maintained once and therefore moves automatically based on your business process. So I wanted to give you that high-level overview just to see how an organization can leverage the power of the Power Platform. Of course, most of our customers actually then want to apply organizational specific requirements to the technology, and because they have that knowledge in-house, they can amend their own Power BI, or they can amend their own forms or attribute without needing to involve us all of the time. That being said, the subject matter expertise in that space, of course, needs to also be incorporated into the solution in their own right. So what I'll do is I'll just show you what I mean. I said earlier, we need to ensure that 100% user adoption occurs by allowing any kind of user to easily utilize the platform. So a platform like that of the 21st century requires you also to have a computer-based training environment where I'm a business user. I have never created a project in my life before, but I now want to know how I can create a project. And we, as Sensei, we literally incorporate all of that capability into the solution, into the Power App solution, where then videos or computer-based learning environments can allow the end user to very easily get familiar with the environment and utilize that. At the same time, I think I've mentioned it earlier, processes are never set in stone and capabilities are never set in stone. We as a fusion partner of Microsoft are of course also a fusion partner to our customers. So it's super important for us to provide a software as a service capability, just like Office 365, where we automatically apply new feature sets. And the way that we do that is literally by providing our users with the ability to give us ideas and feedback, and you actually have the ability to look at all of that feedback across the world for all of our customers, and you can vote for certain feature sets that you would like to see in a PPM solution, for example. My product team then literally looks at that and grooms their backlog and implements that new capability. And as you can see in that instance, it tells you that it's been considered, or that we are working on, or it's been implemented, and you will get a notification once that is implemented. Plus, of course, you have then also the ability to see under what's new, what kind of new feature sets we have actually implemented. So of late, we extended our resource management capability based on user feedback. And as you can see, every 2 weeks, we literally provide new capability. And this is a combination of new feature sets, bug fixes, of course, as well, that are reported on, and you actually have the ability to deploy that first in your test environment, which we refer to as the first release, and then when you are happy with that, you can deploy that into your production environment as a general availability. So it really enables us as a subject matter expert in the fields that we are to provide you with the latest and greatest, and it provides the IT department with not needing to worry about to update that new path. So that's really, really important. Being conscious of time. I could talk about that for another 3 years, no doubt, but my job is also to ensure that we answer some of your questions that have already been outlined here. So let me just go back to...
Hey, Mark.
Yes, please.
I've got a question in the chat, but fantastic demo of using Power Apps to its fullest extent. That was great.
Yeah, and again, you know, we are the subject matter expert of the end user. You are the subject matter expert of making humanizing technology and enabling us to do that. And I'm really, really happy that Microsoft went down that path. Now, one of the great sessions, is there a feature to manage contract delivery association with a single or across multiple projects? The short answer, Andrew, is yes, of course. We actually have contract management with quite a few of our organizations. I encourage you to go to our website, sensei.cloud. There are some really good case studies in regards to what we've done there. But again, the key here is any type of business process that you need to digitalize can be digitalized on the project, on the Power Platform, and that's super important. All right, we had a couple of pre-delivered questions. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go through that before I then open up for other questions. How much in-house knowledge of Power App is needed? Well, I think Scott actually outlined that as well. It's not a matter of years, it's a matter of actually months. And I personally can tell you that Microsoft continuously educates business users as well as technical users with the Power Hour, with the Power App in a day, with capabilities in Power BI and Power Automate. I know for a fact that Scott does that himself as well. I think there's one tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, Scott.
Yeah, I just put the link in the chat. So we get quite a lot of people on our Power Hour every month, and tomorrow's a live app build. So it's pretty special. So we've got a lot of people joining us for that.
Perfect. Look, one of the other questions, what are the consequences of outsourcing that? You know what? The consequences for you as an organization means that you don't have to worry about it anymore. Like a project portfolio management solution. Imagine you train up one subject matter expert that maintains the whole thing and builds the whole thing, and then they go and all of that knowledge disappears. It's actually a risk mitigation on one hand, ensuring that you have a subject matter expert outlining the business, that business continuity. And to be quite frank, again, go onto our website, you can see that from a licensing perspective, from a subscription perspective, it's not even close to what you would have to pay in-house to actually maintain that. When it comes to saying, oh, look, you know what, Sensei IQ was great, but you know, it's not for me anymore. Remember, all of the data that you maintain is in your environment. We do not have access to that. So that means the data that you've managed in your project, program, portfolio, resources is all kept in your Dataverse, and you have then the ability to do whatever you want to do with that. We provide that IP and that knowledge so that you don't have to build them every single time. From a risk perspective, look, it is in our interest, of course, as much as it is in your interest to make that a success. Our fair skin into the game means we provide a subscription-based model. These days, you don't have to have a 3-year investment as it used to be on premises. If you don't like it or if it doesn't add the business value, well, you just stop subscribing. So it is ensuring that we keep on top of making this an absolute high value for you. So that's what I think are the consequences of outsourcing actually. What training path do you recommend to best administer project systems within the Microsoft Power Platform? Great question. I think there are 2 components to that. On one hand, the knowledge of the Power Platform, as Scott already outlined it, I think that is super important, that your IT department understands that strategic path of going down the Power Platform. This is super important and really liberates IT from administrators to innovators, and that's super important. On the other hand, when it comes to a particular business knowledge, in our instance PPM, well, you do generally have somebody like the PMO as part of that, and we provide, of course, a very simple server settings that enables you literally to administer your own, external system links or your project types or your financial categories. So there is, of course, also that type of business knowledge that needs to be part of that as well. So that in short, and I'm conscious of time, I think we have 2 minutes left.
Mark, I'd just like to say a big thank you for letting me talk about Power Apps and hijack your webinar today. I thoroughly enjoyed it and learned a lot from your demos, as I always do.
Thank you very much, Scott, and thank you for your wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate that. You are such an amazing advocate. I know you and I, we've been working for many, many years together. It's always a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much.
Anytime, anytime. Happy to come back.
Awesome. Now, before we close the session, are there any questions that you would like to ask? If so, please open your microphones and blurb them out. Okay, if that's the case, then you will get the information after the session as per every time. And I hope that it was informative and worth your while as well. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Bye.